Hello, I'm Regdrin. My real name is a very unimportant secret. Today I'm going to talk about the creation of scones.
Not just for British people anymore.
Yes, these are not Panera-style scones. These are closer to what most people around here call biscuits. The very first thing, is to preheat the oven to 400 degrees. I don't know why some people leave that mention to the end. The second thing to do is to wash your hands, which I have already done. So let's talk about the ingredients. We have right here 2 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 2 tablespoons of sugar. And we have a half a cup of milk, to which I'm going to add this egg. Now, there's no need to separate this egg, but I like to try that for practice, so let's see how that goes. I think I hit that a bit too hard. Okay, and now to pass it across. Alright, I think that went pretty well. The yolk is nicely in its own little compartment, and there you go. I left the flour out because we're going to need it pretty soon. But first, you sift together all of the dry ingredients. You don't actually need a dedicated sifter for this, just sort of use a spoon to pass it through a metal sieve or any handy equivalent. And there's an ingredient that I had not mentioned yet, which is the butter. Also, it helps to mix the milk and the egg with a fork. Break the yolk, destroy it, scatter its remnants throughout the sea of milk. I am a horrible person, aren't I?
We'll leave that to the viewers.
Okay, fine. Well, sometimes, in order to cook scones, you have to sacrifice your humanity. It's best for this to not be right out of the freezer. If you keep it in the fridge, that should work fine. I left this out for a little bit. 6 tablespoons. So I probably should have measured before I opened this, but hey. And cut into, not quite tablespoon-sized pieces, maybe a bit smaller than that. They go into the mix. This is all fairly simple. The next phase is a particularly important one, and it's definitely something that should be done thoroughly. You will need to take your time with this. And that is, you don't mix the butter in the usual way with a spoon. You have to rub the dry ingredients into the butter, which will give it a sort of consistency similar to oatmeal or perhaps cornstarch. And you'll want to use your bare hands for this, and you'll want to sort of dig towards the bottom and mix all of the dry ingredients thoroughly as you rub it into the butter. A good way to tell if you need to put it back into the mix is if you start feeling the greasiness of the butter. That means you need to get it in contact with the flour and stuff again. And it's not a particularly fast thing, but it makes the ingredient mixture very light and airy, and that's one of the things that helps it puff up a lot in the oven. And since this is such a vital thing, I'm not going to edit out any of this, even though it may look a bit repetitive.
So this is the director's cut version of preparing scones.
Yeah. The producers wanted to get rid of it, but I'm gonna stick with my vision for this whole thing. That beep you heard meant that the oven is ready. And yes, I did say to wash hands right before getting them dirty. Such is the price of cooking, I suppose.
Well, no scone is worth a disease.
I suppose it depends on the scone and the disease. If it was the best sort of scone in the world and it was the common cold, I might go for it. What about you?
I'm sorry, but food poisoning doesn't gel with my style.
Your style is too limited. You're holding yourself back. So we're getting close to the right consistency for this. Now, when you have all this butter mixed in, sort of pinching it might create little bits of butter, but don't worry about that. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to get it mostly the right consistency so that when you sort of pull it from the bottom, it all looks like this. I think this is about right. Next step is the wet ingredients. And this is where it really helps to know about the flour you're using. Because I once got a batch of flour that just completely fell apart when the dry ingredients were added, and I ended up having to introduce more flour. So every time I used that batch afterwards, I used 2 1/4 cups of flour instead of just the 2. It worked better that way. And this is where the powder turns to dough. And it helps to get it all together into one lump before you get it out, but depending on the flour and your patience, you might want to get it out early. This is where you start using some of the extra flour. You put it on the counter or table or whatever you use to keep the dough from sticking. And you'll also want to get all the extra dough out of here. My mom takes a piece of the dough and sort of scrapes it along the bowl, but I'm a slave to the modern convenience of the spatula. Does that mean I'm losing my soul?
No, it just means... Well, I don't know what it means. I'm not a philosopher.
You should be. They say all kinds of neat stuff. Although they probably won't ever get paid. What era would you say you'd have to live to get paid to do that sort of thing?
I would have to say, you would have to be venturing back into BC territory for that sort of thing.
Dang. I knew it was back, but I didn't think it was that far back. And here's where you knead the dough. K-N-E-A-D.
Well, keep in mind that most paid philosophers had other jobs, like, Prime Minister of a Chinese warring state, that sort of thing.
Ah, well. So, this is where you push all the little leftover bits into the middle of the dough, and this doesn't feel like it's sticking much, so I don't need to add more flour.
Yes, adding the wayward comrades to the glorious baking collective.
You make what I do sound so sinister. Why are you doing that? Okay, now it's starting to get a bit stickier, so I'm going to add some more flour. And yes, the knife is still here. I'm not done with that. You are currently safe, but this dough is not.
Only currently safe?
Well, I have to leave myself room for future plans. Alright, and this is starting to look really good. When it stops looking crumbly and starts looking more like a mass of reasonable dough, something that you could get along with socially, that's when you start moving on to the next phase of the master plan. Now you're going to cut this in half. I like to pull it out and make sure that the division is more or less even.
But there's only so much you can do when you're eyeballing it.
Yeah. I'm not sure what kind of precision tools you'd use anyway.
A ruler?
Quiet you with your witchcraft ways. So you flatten it out into a circle. Don't, smash the life out of it, because that'll stop it from raising properly in the oven, but get it so that you can cut it into 8 pieces. Now I'm going to try to divide this evenly without the use of that heretical ruler.
Well, in this case, it would be a protractor.
I don't know the ways of witchcraft. You shut up before I called, the Inquisitors on you. I didn't say that right. And then you put it on the baking sheet, which I hope that you set up beforehand, because your hands will probably be covered in flour, and you probably don't want to get it in the cupboard or whatever you store this in. And then you repeat with the other thing. I'm sure you noticed that I put some flour on the knife, which keeps the dough from sticking to that.
Hopefully this is coming out in decent tablet quality instead of clay tablet quality.
Well, clay tablet had to serve for our ancestors, and if it was good enough for them... Actually, maybe it wasn't, considering how quickly they tried to move to other things. And with that done, it goes into the oven for 20 minutes.
You actually gonna put it in there?
No, I'm just gonna let it sit out here for 20 minutes instead. Or 20 minutes and 9 seconds if your microwave is encountering the problems.
Okay, so we just break here?
Yeah, I'm gonna cast a time advancement spell so you can pop right in once that's done. Alright, I restored time a little bit before the scones were ready because I want to discuss something a little less glamorous but definitely necessary, the cleanup. To deal with the flour and the bits of dough on the counter, I use 2 main steps. First is the dry paper towel to sweep every bit of loose stuff into the conveniently placed garbage bin below.
Mm-hmm.
And the second step is going to be a damp paper towel. Very small amount of water because this gets over-soaked very easily. And this is going to take some scrubbing because there's going to be little bits of sticky dough on the counter. And you might need to look at it at different angles so that the light will make the pieces apparent. But this is going to be fairly important if you want to serve the scones on anything fancier than the baking sheet. And I'm going to demonstrate that once the timer goes off. Also, speaking of cleanup, most of the tools that I used are soaking in the sink right now. Just normal dish soap is fine. You don't soak the knife, of course, because metal, water, something. Finally, you sponge off any excess water, though there really shouldn't be any.
If you've done it right anyway.
Yeah. Well, you know how you can't trust me to do something like that. And that's pretty much it for the counter. I missed a little bit. What can I say? Please don't hit me anymore, I'll stop being so clumsy. We still have a minute left, so let's talk a bit more about gratuitous space battles.
Why?
Well, because that's on my channel. Or it should be. What's wrong with it?
So, what more do you have to say?
Cooking is amazing, it's really useful, and people seem to be interested in it every now and again. I don't know, maybe it's because a large segment of the population eats food. What do you think?
Well, I have something to say about gratuitous space battles, at least.
Oh, good.
Fighters are completely useless. There's no reason to use them ever.
Are you talking about the sequel or the original?
Sequel.
Okay. I was about to say, in the original they're not bad.
Yeah, they actually have a use.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll go into more detail with that in the next couple of gratuitous space battles videos, I hope. And take a look at the timer. Big countdown.
3, 2, 1.
Happy New Year! Or happy something.
Not for a while yet.
No, I think this is an important enough event for the ball to drop because, I mean, I'm not saying that I'm improving the condition of the universe, because that would be hubris. All I'm saying is that 30 minutes ago there were not scones and now there are scones.
Yeah, that works.
Now, unfortunately, smell-o-vision is not properly refined, so you'll have to take our word for it that this smells fantastic.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the tablet can't record smells.
What is wrong with our tablet?
Well, another thing, I hope you don't mind that the frame rate is very cinematic.
Well, as long as Total Biscuit doesn't watch this, we'll be okay.
Yeah, he'd also probably complain about the FOV.
That actually sounds more interesting. So we need tongs. Well, we don't need them, but they help because I have a basket with cloth on it, and aside from looking nicer, you can put the cloth over the scones and they cool off less quickly that way, so people can enjoy them at greater leisure. Also notice how they've puffed up very nicely.
Uh-huh.
I like to serve these with any kind of preserves. Strawberry preserves or grape or other kinds. There's really no restriction for this sort of thing. Or margarine or butter works great if you just use moderation, because you saw how much butter went into the creation of these. And, well, I'm using tongs because these are obviously right out of a 400-degree oven, but they cool off enough to eat quite fast.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, here are the scones. Zoom in on their glory. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If there's demand for it, I'll produce more recipes that are possibly more dinner-related. Until then, thanks again for watching. Later.
See ya. And that's it?
Yeah.